Travis Wingetzel, Article of Faith, number 12. Everybody knows it. We believe in being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, and magistrates, and obeying, honoring, and sustaining the law. What is the law of the United States of America? The United States Constitution and laws that support it. Right now we are seeing a coup of our government, as the Supreme Court is overthrowing the Constitution. It is blatantly and obviously a terroristic insurrection by our own government to destroy our government. It's white supremacist Christian nationalism that is involved. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints being on the forefront of this attack. In the church news today, because this is a church news video in case you didn't catch on, knowing that the church is lying. If you didn't bother to do your research, you can't get angry at me, even though you're going to, because you're the enemy. I had a dumbass comment from a guy who thinks that he's going to tell me how to do my videos so that I can get more views. Bleep you. I know exactly how to get views. It is YouTube that's attacking me. And it just so happens that YouTube was given a pass on their criminal actions towards me by the Supreme Court of the United States of America today. In that, YouTube can ban whatever video they want and claim medical misinformation. That's what the Supreme Court ruled today. It is pure evil. It is a violation. And the Supreme Court tried to claim that the argument was worded wrong. But it's plain and simple. But Trump is going to reverse that when he takes over, because the Supreme Court's letting him in, as well as the judge in his particular cases. So whether or not he actually gets thrown in prison on July 11th, it's all being set up to destroy America this year. Is that Trump had that big stink, along with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, claiming that social media sites, such as YouTube, were rigging the algorithms against him. And so he wanted the algorithms rigged in favor of him. And thus, same with the church. And thus, all of a sudden, my YouTube videos... Isn't that interesting? Interesting timing. So, let's cover some of the other stuff we got in the news. I'm still hearing, as I can't watch videos while signed in. Again, this is part of YouTube's attack. I am being punished for something I have no idea what I did, specifically. I know what actions I did. I'm uploading videos. YouTube attacks, tries to prevent me from uploading my videos. I send a feedback complaining. YouTube retaliates. That's what I did. How dare you complain? This is a 1984 tactic, and other movies and books, TV shows. Noticing on Star Trek Voyager now that Voyager is more about insurrectionist storylines. You know, you have the Marquis that joins them and they get lost out in the Delta Quadrant. But the themes of the shows are based upon insurrection, rebellion, defying orders, going behind the back, etc., etc. And the particular evil enemy antagonists in the show are by far the most horrifyingly evil that I have ever encountered. Not just because of brute force in their violent manner towards others, but the psychological indoctrinating that they have to justify committing these abominations and atrocities. It is literally scary what they seeing into the minds of the antagonists to justify doing what they do. None of the other shows, and I think after Voyager I will have seen them all, because I think after Voyager we get into the newer stuff, and I've seen all of those, but I'm still going to continue on in chronological order to the end. But nonetheless, and so what I'm hearing in the news, not signed in, is of a disturbing nature in Utah. The escalation of murder-suicides, for example. I'm hearing more about that in the news. That is very disturbing. And I don't know why, whether it was finances, whether it was denial of sex, whether it was divorce, whether it was, well, I do know, I remember southern Utah had a divorce case where the husband killed the ex-wife and the kids. That was a tragic thing. The latest ones, the couples, I'm not hearing what happened there. But these are Mormons, guys. I mean, Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow, the 8 passengers, Jody Hildebrandt, and some other psychologists, the whole asylum getting shut down here in Utah. And yet the church is still keep pushing for psychology of family services. The news keeps pushing how to find the right psychologist for you. Well, none, because they've been exposed now. The whole thing is a fraud, and we're seeing the fruit of psychology. Just like AI. We instantly saw the fruit of AI when it was telling people to murder other people and kill yourself. That's not a good program. And yet, did they stop it? Nope. Did they go back to the drawing board? Nope. Did they remove the psychological programming from it? Nope. And so, yeah, I have no idea if Mormons are thinking, oh, this is the rapture. We need to kill ourselves to meet Jesus in the clouds of glory. In case you didn't know, Jesus didn't show. But we're not Christian, because Christianity is Trinity Jesus, not real, from the first creed of the Nicene Creed of Constantine. He declared, Constantine, because nobody else would give up the nature and character of their Christ. They gave up the name, they gave up the doctrine, they gave up the ritual, they gave up the theology, but they would not give up the nature and character. And so Constantine did it for them and forced them to obey. And thus we get Trinity, which means not real, by definition, because it was made up. It is not a Greek word. And yet still to this day there are Christians thinking they know. It's just unbelievable how gullible people can be when you use fallacy arguments. But yeah, you got to understand that with Constantine's creation of Christianity, in order to get away with it, he had to dumb down the masses. And so the members of the congregations were not given access to scriptures. They had to listen to what their religious leader was telling them to believe and how to think and what to do. And then you get painters who come along and they screw it up even further. Because the Tree of Life painting, for example, I did the video on Joseph Smith's memorial. And if you've ever read the Book of Mormon about the Tree of Life, both Lehi's version and Joseph Smith's version, there's some things that are missing there. You've got the Gulf, but there's also the river of filthy water that people were drowning in. That's missing. The forbidden paths are missing. You're also missing the fountain of living waters. Missing. And it's unclear as if there's a clear path with the tree, the iron rod, because there's an actual path with it. So, yeah, and so when you get Mormons who refuse to study and try to cheat their way into Mormonism, they watch the movie rather than read the book. So Hollywood tricked you by not following the book. And so, F on your book report in school. That'll teach you. And so, yes, Mormons have a level of ignorance, a level of illiteracy because of this. And the church is to blame for it because of what happened in 1993 with September 6th. No more studying, no more still small voice. You need to feel, and it needs to be the right feeling. And now you know. And so, yeah, I'm deeply concerned about Mormons who are going to start murdering themselves, thinking that they're going to meet Jesus in the clouds of glory, like that Heaven's Gate psycho. Also, I found out Tim Ballard fled the country to Mexico. He lost his company. It's owned and operated by somebody else now. And yet, he's claiming down in Mexico that he's still trying to do his job. For which he's in trouble for, legally. Dear God. He should have capitalized more on he was President Ballard. He should have thrown President Ballard under the bus, because the church obviously ain't stepping in to save him. The church betrayed him, and that's the time where he needed to step up and say, yes, it's not me you need to sue, women, it's the church, get them. And that would have shut the whole thing down immediately. Tim Ballard did not play that one right. And then, of course, the Lyman taint. Apparently, he's in defiance that he got smoked yesterday. He does not understand. In the state of Utah, the candidates whom the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wants in office, regardless of what office it is. If the church wants you in, you're in. if you think you're going to run against them, you're running against the church, and you're an apostate, anti-Mormon, anti-Christ whore, and you're going to be tainted, Lyman. So yes, Cox and Curtis, Danite descendants, are going to be put into position. And this should concern Mormons because of Romney. He ran for president. He wasn't afraid to run for president, knowing that his religion was going to get mocked and the death threats that would naturally ensue. As Ross Perot was a big disappointment for us when I was running, or was able to vote in my first election ever at 18 years of age, 1988. I remember I already knew from the news that a bipartisan government is stupid and is causing problems, as I'm being threatened by my parents to get a life and get out of the house and get a job and get a haircut. Theme song in the description below. I think it's George Thorogood, isn't it? Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just... I was wanting to vote for an independent. Naive that was a throwaway vote. But he was generating enough popularity that I thought maybe he'll overthrow the bipartisan government that we have. And then he got a death threat for him and his family, and he backed out. And he would go on to run again in 92 or in the 90s sometime, something like that. And it just, no. If you cannot sacrifice your life in defense of this country, you are not worthy to be running for president. Plain and simple. But you can't coup it. So, but yeah, it's the corruption that's going on is just, it's sickening. It is just barfing sickening. So, Mormon women are the highest per capita of those who are abused by psychologists because of the abuse of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This has already also been exposed here in the state of Utah. It's been this way for decades, that Mormon Utah women are the highest per capita taking depression drugs, which you can only get from a psycho. Technically a psychiatrist. She's the drug pusher for the pharmaceutical companies. And we found out this year that these drugging of the women who can't turn that frown upside down, get out of the job market, quit going on missions and staying home barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen, are getting abused and dying earlier because of the drugging. As domestic violence, each and every single time it occurs in the state of Utah, the news thinks they're going to be the authority on domestic abuse splaining for us rather than reporting the news. And talk about empowering women to step forward and narc on their abusive husband or spouse, because it goes both ways in the state of Utah, as there are women who are rising up to murder their husbands. And even with drugging, fentanyl, that case is dragging on too long. And talking about how women have Stockholm syndrome, that their emotional attachment to their husband, and they never, of course, say that the threats of the church to stay in your marriage and make it work, can't say that that plays a factor in it, as I was victimized by that. Because yeah, it's, oh God, I was not going to be the one to get the divorce, despite every abuse she did to me. It was because of the church threatening me not to be the one who divorces. And from my perspective, I also needed to realize that I needed to take the higher ground anyway, because that's what she was trying to do. She was purposely abusing me so that she can be the victim and say, oh, he divorced me. Oh, I'm stuck with these 4 kids and his stupid Paleo-Hebrew decipherment research that proves Joseph Smith is true. I'm so victimized. No, instead, she was forced to be the one to leave. Of course, she lied still to the end, but still, she left. She made the decision. She abused me, and realizing that I wasn't going to leave, she then left. But she was able to get a lot of people turned against me. She was very effective. But because of all the placating to her, coddling and siding with her, her personality escalated to where I was hearing that nobody liked her anymore. And she was ostracized because she was getting controlling and demanding to other people. It worked on Travis. It'll work on you. And so, yeah, I'm just heartbroken over my kids and the abuse she did to them. And nobody stepped in to stop it. Nobody stepped in to stop her. Not even my parents, who aided and abetted her. Not even the bishops, who aided and abetted her. But regardless, this traditional Mormon family marriage is well understood as abusive patriarchal authority and dominance. And so we've got the church's global initiative for women and children now. In case you didn't know, women and children are deeply abused in this church. If you hadn't caught on after 24 minutes into this video. And so the thumbnail picture is the church's global initiative for women and children to help them become independent people and get careers and education. And nope. Got a group of women in a kitchen baking. I mean, yeah, the one woman is cute. I hope she's single and available and wants to leave the church and is okay with an older man. Not likely. as I noticed Garna Mejia has been wearing a ring for the last couple of months. If you remember my videos and thumbnail pictures with that scandal, I hope she's happy, but she's still in the church, so she's not happy. Garna. And it's possible, because it happens in Utah, that because of the pressure to be married, barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen, that there are women who are in the public purposely wearing a ring to keep guys away. Unfortunately, these women are not given sex ed that a man who is desperate enough purposely targets married women. I try to warn women, and I'm the bad guy. Anyway, and so the General Relief Society presidency on the blessings of being barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. With a global initiative. And in case you forgot, because you hadn't been watching lately, on Sunday, Nelson spoke to new mission presidents, and they covered it in the church news. And I go over the church news with you. I saw the thumbnail picture. They put it as the top story. The president of our church. Obviously, they need to make him the top story. Whenever Nelson's involved, he must be the top story. End of debate. Everybody should know this. So I did my video. I saw Jennifer today commented the quote from the first commandment. And because she did not explain it like the other guy I talked about, I approved it. And if I see her comment available for on the needing to respond column, I'll put a thumbs up and a happy or a little heart. But thank goodness she didn't put in parentheses like the other guy did, Jesus. Because that is anti-Semitic. You can't do that. The Jews have the 10 Commandments, not the Christians. Christians stole, like the Borg. They assimilated the Jews into the Christian collective. That's where they got the Borg from. Didn't you know that? Thus the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Church can't be true if they're going to claim that the first creed of Christianity is true and just simply change the nature and character of Jesus. Nope. Joseph said the whole thing is wrong. I've gone over it with you. The whole thing is wrong. They completely replaced the Jews, and thus they deny prophecy and revelation. The Jews were prophets, seers, revelators, and translators. Christians are not. They deny it all. So Joseph Smith, what was he? Prophet, seer, revelator, translator. Jews! And so for Mormons to claim Jesus is the Christ is abominable. This is the 180th year, the Tree of Life prophecy. I did the video just now today. I recorded it the other day and assembled it today, loaded it up, put it on the home page as well. The Book of Mormon is prophecy and revelation. It's got additional stuff. Yes, it plagiarizes on purpose, but there's additional material we as Mormons have exclusive access to, and you just don't care. It's so sad. And so I received an email. The guy linked me to a YouTube video of which I can't watch. But it has to do with how the church is spending millions for whatever charity it was. And he was talking about how his father thinks that the church is true because of this one video on YouTube explaining the generosity of the church, as they all suppose. And so he was concerned because he's been watching me for a while and knows that the church isn't true because of the criminal fraud that it has. And again, I refer you back to Article of Faith number 12. You cannot commit crimes as a religion and claim to be true. It doesn't matter if you claim to be Christian or claim that Jesus is the Christ. Even though you are an anti-Semite, you're also a criminal when you do what the church does. And so I am going to go over my reply to his email and explain why the church is evil, that they are doing no good. Remember, Matthew chapter 7, plagiarized in the Book of Mormon. By their fruits ye shall know them. Fruits are not a spiritual witness feeling. That is faith. Faith must be in the Word. The Word is likened unto a seed, not fruit, seed. Thus, feelings are not the fruit. Feelings are in the seed, the Word. You've got to produce the results. Do what is right, let the consequences follow. So the only way to know what is right is by the consequences. It's a little bit tricky, but that's why it's important to properly educate your kids. Because as adults, you're already supposed to have had a number of truths from your implementation, so that you can pass it on to your kids, rather than telling them that Jesus is real, regardless of his nature and character. God, over 4 billion have been fooled by Constantine on the earth right now. And I have no idea how many people have been living on earth since the time of Constantine who have been forced, threatened, deceived, lied to, and thus believed. And so the first thing I did was went over President Nelson's first presidency official statement that was on the church news. And yes, I covered it when it happened. And yes, I was laughing. And so bleep you to that guy who told me how to do my videos. He says that I shouldn't mock people. Really? So are you going to tell Jesus he shouldn't have mocked the Pharisees, scribes, and Sadducees in Matthew chapter 23? You're going to tell me that Elijah shouldn't have mocked the priests of Baal when Jesus didn't come on 8 April 2024? What did you think that was about? Prophecy and revelation. not literal history. And Joseph Smith, King Follett's sermon. Big time mocker. Hilarious. These are the people I emulate. If you don't like it, wah! Go be a sensitive snowflake with Laman and Lemuel. You are only guilty or you're only offended if you're guilty. So don't be telling me how to do my videos just because you're a sensitive snowflake. Guilty. First Presidency statement on church finances. Statement provided in response to media stories, not the anti-Mormon, antichrist, apostate Korahor who whistle blew at Ensign Peak Advisors. Nelson claims justification with the Savior in the parable of the talents. This is a sound doctrinal and financial principle, and thus lived by the church and its members. What? I can ask you for tithing and hoard it, launder it into the stock market, refuse to notify the SEC? To see how evil. Every Mormon gets fooled by this. See, the church has always told members, you need to set aside money for savings. I used to have the piggy bank from my parents. They bought me the piggy bank. It had savings and mission and tithing. But the church, no, they're panhandlers. They receive only. They don't work for any of it. They tell you it's for Jesus. You need to pay them. And so, no. They have savings. That's it. They don't do anything for mission. Other Mormons have to pay in for the mission. Tithing? No. Others pay into tithing. They only have savings. That's it. All donations were donated to the church, not through tithing. Tithing is forced. It is not a donation. Those who tried to sue the church for tithing blew it. Tithing is not a donation. When you are required to pay or you get punished, you get deprived of membership qualifications. That makes it a forced payment. It is not a donation. And because it's a forced payment, yeah, there's some other problems. There's even some other crimes in violation of Article of Faith number 12. That makes the church wrong. And so this was only tithing, but he says all church funds exists for no other reason than to support the church's divinely appointed mission. What is that mission? It's not perfecting the saints, redeeming the dead, proclaiming the gospel. Which was an excellent structural system for the elders' quorum. But nope, that failed. But I remember up in Canada when I was there with the first wife, of obtaining an 8.5 by 11 paper of an organization chart for the elders quorum on how to structure the elders to get everybody into a position or calling of some sort or another based on those three missions of the church. And it was an excellent structure, because that's the one thing that the church is failing with in retaining membership, is they're not giving everybody a calling, something to do in the church, not a make thing. Oh, I'm going to make you the janitor. You're going to clean the church. Before time, they used to put the less actives as the scout leaders. It's not churchy, but it still keeps them in the church. But, Obama ruined that. And Ballard, oh my God, I saw that video. We didn't leave the Boy Scouts, they left us. You raped the boys! And then you bailed so that you didn't have to pay for it. God. 3,000. And that's only those who stepped forward. There's probably others who died and others who were too ashamed to step forward. Dear God. And the church just walked away from it. And so, yes. The parable of the talents, however, is in Matthew 25. What's the context of Matthew 25? It's a continuation of Matthew 24. What's Matthew 24? It's after Matthew 23 with angry, offended Jesus who goes on a tear against the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes with his mockery, condemnation, judging. Yeah, Matthew 25 has to do with the latter days. These are specific parables after giving prophecies and revelations. But no man knows the day or the hour, Travis. Nope, sorry, he does. Right there in Matthew 24 and 25 with the parables. He gives you the day and the hours in symbolic coding. Sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven. That's the day and the hour. Now we know. God, it's just dumb when these Christians think they're going to cover up and hide the truth from us to deny prophecy and revelation. And so it's not about hoarding money for when Jesus comes. Jesus doesn't need money. He tells us in the Book of Mormon, after condemning priestcraft. In case you didn't know, section 119 is all about Jesus saying, screw the Book of Mormon as the keystone. We're practicing priestcraft. We're going to blame Joseph for it in 1838 when he became an evil, horrible, abominable monster that everybody in this church, not others, accused him of. And it wasn't really accusing him of it. It was, yeah, Joseph is this. He's a rapist of little girls. Woohoo! So that they could rape little girls. This is the evil of the Danites. This church is the Danite church. That's why they're evil. That's why the church wanted certain Danite descendants in government office for this year, which I forgot to mention. Mitt Romney, why did he leave? Did you ever think about that? He's Mormon. We're called Latter-day Saints. What's going on in the latter days? Why should we be concerned? The day that shall burn as an oven, abomination of desolation, civil war, the government falling, and the keys of government being handed to Nelson or Oakes or whoever's still alive. That's why he left. He saw in 2020 that they were making their move, as they were going to murder him. If he didn't run for his life in that corridor that was on that immortal video in those congressional hearings, yeah. And so then he saw things escalate. So he said, uh-oh, I need to quit. And so, what did the church do? They put in Danites. Curtis is now the front runner. And the Democrat, he's not supported by the church. We all know he's going to lose. Curtis will be the senator. But we still don't know yet if there will be a swearing in of the new Congress. Because we all know, and we've been threatened, as already the works are in motion to tamper, deny, and overthrow the results of the election at all costs, especially if a certain person who's running for president gets locked up in prison for paying a porn star to rig the 2016 election. And you don't believe the Book of Mormon? It is not literal history. Therefore, the first year of the reign of Zedekiah is not literal history. It's prophecy and revelation, predicting the future, giving you the day and the hour. Not a single one of you believe it. And so, yeah, the church is putting Curtis in as a backup to help Senator Lee, who should not be in office because of 14th Amendment, Section 3, which SCOTUS overthrew. And so there's no reason for them to delay the immunity decision in their court, because they've already given him immunity. Our government is being cooed. It was not a one-day event. And so the parable of the talents is actually talking about those who go to Zion. We've already had the first resurrection. It came and went. Mormons rejected it. Second resurrection has come and gone too. Ex-foes have rejected it. We're now in the third resurrection, the final one. And so it's going to be after the destruction, because they're not even listening to my channel. They know nothing of it. And so it's those along the highways, if you saw that video. We need to hurry up and end this. And so, yeah, the church getting busted for the SEC violation, church isn't true. They're going against Article of Faith number 12. And so I put in my reply, if Jesus commands not to commit crime, then why did Jesus ask the prophets to commit crimes? We don't even need to discuss the Jewish Christ. That'll confuse you. We'll just use your belief in Jesus. If Jesus forbids priestcraft in the Book of Mormon, why then did Jesus allow priestcraft in section 119? If Jesus forbade polygamy 6 times in the Book of Mormon, why did he command it in section 132? If Jesus ordered Mormons to save the Constitution and save America in D.C., why does this church say that we need to overthrow the government? So they give the power of government to the church. Does Jesus want to overthrow the government or protect it? Now, do you see the Danite emerging from this? It's blatantly in violation of the Book of Mormon and religion of Joseph Smith. Obvious. Blatant. And Mormons just don't care. That's what is so evil. That Mormons just refuse to be good because the prophets are evil. King Noah syndrome. And so then I linked him to the Canadian news, of which the church was laundering money through BYU. In this case, it was tithing. And also Australia's press that exposed the church for violating their multinational tax evasion scheme, as they were calling it. Because there are certain rules in different countries, and the church is trying to bypass those to get as much money as they can and not have to pay in taxes. Because the United States has 501c3 to be tax exempt, but the church is violating the rules for that, and they're getting away with it. It was just the SEC that the church finally got busted for something that they are doing. Everything they do is criminal because they are not true. And so the money that is donated was given to the church in the first place. And like he says in the first presidency statement, claiming parable of the talents, this is the process through Ensign Peak Advisors for every other source of income. Every other source around the world has the same pattern. And so there's a Zion's bank account for the source of income, and 10% automatically gets taken out into an LLC company, Ensign Peak Advisors. The SEC violation was that also. And then, as it's been a business with the trickle-down economics of the guy from Dead Valley days, born in East LA. Cheech and Chong, awesome movie. But his economic system was supposed to trickle down to launder money into the corporations, and then it goes down to the employees and thus the customers as well. And it didn't. It stayed at the top. And they then invested in the stock market, and apparently after a certain time now, you have to wait until you can invest in your own company. As I found out with Trump and his stock tanking, I did some checking on that and found out that he has to wait for a few more months before he can then get involved, but his stock is now tanking. And so he's most likely profiting off of the tanking through the people who did invest, who funnel some to him. But I don't have the technology to find how the money trail on that. That's supposed to be our federal government that's supposed to be doing that. But, and so, yeah, businesses purposely produce poor quality products that are expensive, that require people to repair them or buy new stuff, depending on whether the company offers repairs or parts. If they don't offer repairs or parts, then you have to buy a whole new product. And even with repairs and parts, they crank up the price on those beyond the price of the original product, and thus you hear people say, well, it's just cheaper to buy a whole new one for that particular reason, because people were able to fix things themselves and get cheaper parts. And so to put a stop to that, they did what they did, and thus improving the technology also to bypass that, so that you have to be on top of the new equipment to put the parts in to fix it. And so, yeah, like with DVDs come out, replace VHS tapes, which won out on beta. And so then Blu-ray started to come around. And the companies were producing both DVDs and Blu-rays, but they're putting out Blu-rays now. They don't want you to buy DVDs, they want you to buy their brand new product of DVD or Blu-rays. And so what I noticed happening, because I'm not going to pay billions of dollars for a Blu-ray player, that's stupid. And so I still keep buying the DVDs. And when DVDs first came out, yeah, they were awesome. It was great. Perfect. Now I just need a way to convert them into a digital format like I do my music. And it would be years later. But that's another story. And so, yeah, Blu-rays purposely came out to tank the quality of the DVD equivalents, so that people would be forced to endure the poor quality DVD now, with the volume low, and you had to crank it all the way up on your TV to listen. What did he say? Turn it up. It's all the way up, all the way it can go. I can't hear him. And it starts to get fuzzier, all to force people to go Blu-ray. That's criminal, because the DVDs were perfectly fine. There was no need to upgrade them to Blu-ray. You know, maybe if you need to see details, that somebody far back in the background sticks out their tongue during a certain part in the show. That on regular DVD you can't really see facial expressions. I can understand that. I was blind once. But now I see. And so, yeah, then the companies refuse to pay higher wages as the government tries to raise the minimum wage, and businesses retaliate by forcing the prices up, and quality is cheaper, all in retaliation. And so thus the minimum wage that just got bumped up is now worse percentage-wise with the cost of living. People who demand a higher minimum wage don't seem to understand this. The government must get back into controlling the economy. And so thus the customers are abused, the employees are abused, and the corporations get wealthier and wealthier. And so all this is done by the church as well, as the money that they purposely don't use, as again, remember, they're using as little as possible from what donations they get for each and every single source of income. They don't want to spend it all, because the more that they can hoard, the more that money gets funneled into an offshore bank account. That's thanks to the Australia press, who caught on to that. And so the church has the main bank account with Zion's. They have the LLC company of 10% of that one source of income, and that's for each and every single one. And then what they don't use, because tithing is $200 billion in 2019 for just tithing, which means 10% means that that's $2 trillion in their Zion account. It doesn't cost that much. The whistleblower told us the church gets $7 billion in interest annually, and that's more than enough to take care of the church perpetually. No Mormon needs to give the church tithing anymore, because that $7 billion alone takes care of every operation of the church. There are over 36 different sources of income beyond tithing. And tithing alone, with the $200 billion getting $7 billion in interest, as it keeps going up over time, is more than enough to take care of everything that's operating in the church. And so all these other organizations are adding to the $2 trillion. The church is a multi-trillionaire. And just Nivea finally cracked the trillionaire mark. Church has been there a long time now. And yet, the church thinks that they can fool you into, oh wow, we gave 50 million, I think was the amount in the video that I got, or 100 million, or 200 million actually, for what I also talk about. And this is where the church reveals they are criminal and evil. They are not giving. They are bad givers. They are retaining the gift. In Oklahoma, the native Indians wanted to build a museum for their history of their people on the land. The church went in and said, hey, here's $200 million to help you. Thank you. Now, according to scriptures, you need to give without expecting anything in return. Church can't do that. So what the church did was what they do with everything. It's a business deal for them. They profit off of it. And in this particular case, they had a booth at their museum for genealogy as an inside gateway to recruit by sending the people who stopped at their booth to visit with the missionaries. And again, remember, tithing is forced. It is not a donation. It is on the worthiness interview questions. Not donations, tithing. Do you pay a full tithe? You are not worthy if you don't pay. And so, there were enough complaints that the museum founders found out about this and did the honorable thing. When people are profiting off of a donation, when people are trying to do a business deal with you rather than being generous and helping you. And remember the abominations committed against the Native Indians in just the United States of America, as Brigham Young also was an abuser of the native inhabitants of this valley. Murderer. As they're finding their dead bodies all over the state. The majority of people who are in needy circumstances, when they receive money, even though they know they have to do the church a favor, though, they still take the money. They have no honor, they have no integrity. These Oklahoma Indians demonstrated their strength of character. They gave back the money. What does that say about everybody else that the church news says that the church gave to them, but they didn't give it back? Church is still doing the same kind of criminal operation that they did with the Oklahoma Indians. But only the Oklahoma Indians made the news by giving the money back. Everybody else takes the money and lets the church profit off of it. Right, Gail Miller? So Moroni chapter 7 verses 5 through 10 about those who are corrupt givers. You got to freely give without expecting anything in return. You do not put your booth in there to recruit, forcing people to pay to get the money back. Right, Gail Miller? Gail Miller, in case you didn't know, is involved with the shelters here in Utah. Church gave her donations, not the poor homeless people. Gail Miller and the corporate board. It did not trickle down to the homeless. And so, yeah, what did Gail Miller do for the church? Oh, here's money for the Joseph Smith Papers project, because the church wasn't going to do it on their own. They are not going to spend their own money for anything. Somebody has to give it to them in order for them to do it. And so even with the Book of Mormons, it's now free. No, it's not. There's a Book of Mormon fund where Mormons donate. Because I remember that transition. Missionaries were asking help for donations to purchase books to give to people way back in the day. And so, yeah, the church saw this as a financial profiting opportunity. And so, yeah, the tithing slip used to have a whole long list. And then eventually it got too long, and so they just put other and then specify. And then had their little small print below. We have the right to launder the money into whatever source of income we want. Because there were some that were not profitable. And they had to launder the money, and thus the City Creek Mall scandal with Ensign Peak Advisors. That's why the church had to do that, is those other funds lacked. And so they need to be compensated by other things. But the City Creek Mall, yeah, it's an investment. They expect to profit off of it to get all that money back. And so you can't be a true church if that's what you're involved with. It's real plain and simple. So, damn, it's after 5. Alrighty. We'll try to get it up as soon as possible tonight. And see you in the morning.